It's Tuesday evening and it's 6 p.m. UK time. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program. I'm Saad in Southeast London in Bromley, and with me is Gregory. Gregory, how are you and where are you and how's the weather?
Hello, I'm here in Brussels and it's dark already and it's past 7 already and it's been cold.
Cold. Okay. So here in London, it is also dark. Yes, I can call it cold now. I think it was quite fine. Things are getting colder, but it's not so, not too cold. And yes, it's good. So, dear listeners, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And we have a new topic every week for discussion. The topic for tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. Shame, guilt, and humility. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. Just to remind you, listeners, the topic we're discussing tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. Shame, guilt, and humility. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. So, Gregory, as usual, the topic title tonight, as I say, shame, guilt, and humility. I looked up the words in the title and in the dictionary, and this is what I found. For shame, I looked up shame, and the shame, it says, is a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. And another one they've given is a regrettable or unfortunate situation or action. So that is a definition of shame in the dictionary. Just want to ask you, Gregory, is that a good representation of the word shame? I think you're on mute. Gregory, I think, yeah, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
As is the case with most dictionary definitions, these are only descriptions or approximations from the different impressions which have been gathered. But it doesn't, definition in this particular case is an expression to represent what that word is, or the meaning of that word. That representation must, of course, have to be intuitive, else it will not give a proper impression, which is the meaning that we are seeking.
Thank you for that. And just to clarify something, when you say it needs to have an intuitive impression, does it mean in one situation it can have a different meaning and another situation can have another meaning, like almost like an opposite of that meaning? So I just want to get that clarified.
What is stressed here is that every word or every group of words must have an impression which they represent. That impression has to be unique, else it will be confusing. In this case, shame itself must have a precise impression. In fact, all words must have impressions, else they are useless.
So, if just to go to the word shame, maybe I'll just repeat this just for the example. So here we have in the dictionary it's saying a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. I'm just going to stop at that one. So is that a good example or good description, let me say? Or should we, let me just stop there. So is that a good description for that word shame?
It is a partial description. It hasn't looked at the essence of what shame is. So you have a description, a partial description. The essence of shame can only be reached, or that expression, only when what has shame is talked about. If you are referring to animals or to plants, you won't talk of shame. But if you are referring to human personalities, then one may talk about shame, because there are certain attributes which the personality has, and a deviation from those attributes is what is being discussed in this particular instance.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. As soon as you mentioned animals, I just thought, when, let's say, animal wheeze, it doesn't think about what is where it is or who's looking or not. But when a human being wheezes in, let's say, not in a private place, but in the sort of, let's say, in the open area, let's call it like that, it is more conscious of what he's doing. It might still do that, but the point is, animal doesn't think twice about what he's doing, or he or she is doing, but a human would definitely think twice before he would do that. So, yes, if you use the word, if you look at this shame in, let's say, doing something in public, in this example that I've given, the human would, the animal would not experience shame for sure. It doesn't even hesitate, while the human being does. At least it hesitates before, doing that. So, which is obviously something there is a shame, partially involving shame there. So, so what you pointed to, Gregory, is that humans and animals behave differently, specifically in regards to shame there. Maybe we'll take a look at it right now, Gregory. Why is that? Why don't the animals behave like humans in this regard, in shame?
In the first instance, the animals, their perception and their consciousness is limited. Whereas when one is talking about human beings, it is the self-consciousness. That means you have a personality. When self-consciousness is mentioned, it becomes like a self-judge to determine that which is adequate and that which is not adequate. For in their inner sensing, they have a guideline or a set of guidelines. One may refer to these guidelines as spiritual guidelines. That means there are spiritual laws. So the spiritual laws which human personalities follow are different from the animistic laws which the animals follow.
Thank you for that. So it looks like there are different laws. Normally that's what we say, one law for one group and another law for another group. That's with human beings. But here we are talking about animistic for animals and spiritual for the humans. So let me explore that more. Gregory, I just want to, just to make clear to all our listeners, today we are looking at human, well, that's always at every topic that we do, we always focus on human activity or human conceptions to do with human beings. So just to be clear, that's what this today's topic and every show that we do is always about looking at human beings. So just to continue on that, Gregory, so let's focusing on human beings and with regard to shame. You talked about spiritual laws there, and I'm thinking, Gregory, what about the way people are brought up? How they behave with regards to shame. Is it, maybe the certain things are okay in one culture and not, accepted in another culture. Let's say with regards to dress, or, well, it could be some behavior. I must say, I don't know if it is exactly true or not, but maybe some cultures, spitting may be acceptable in certain situation. And while other cultures, they just would say, no, you cannot do this spitting anytime. So I'm wondering, Gregory, and then the shame would come because that has been accepted by that culture to be right or not right. So, in some cases that would be. So I just want to clarify that with regards to shame. Is the sense or feeling of shame, can that be, let's say, come about through culture? Yes, through cultural upbringing.
The feeling of shame may come through cultural upbringing, depending on how far evolved that cultural sensing, how far evolved it has gone in the realizations of the spiritual laws, which spiritual laws tend or help the individual to self-consciousness. So the key here is the self-consciousness. The more mature the personality is towards self-consciousness, with the realization of the responsibilities attached to self-consciousness, then the more mature the personality is. And when it does not conform to those, or to the task, to the responsibilities, to the duties that are attached or that has accrued to self-consciousness, then it feels shame.
Thank you for that answer and explanation. It certainly gives us a wider picture than we might anticipate, because people might think, this feeling of shame, it should be universal to all human beings. But what you pointed to there, Gregory, that there is a variation according to, your level of consciousness or sort of development in the culture, which is, you might not have thought of that. So thank you for bringing that out. So I'm just thinking, I don't want to go into this straight away yet, but let's say in the public, certain things are considered, let's say, shameful and others are not. I know the public is mixed, made of many human beings. Obviously, there's variation in opinion and so on. But let's say in majority cases, there's a certain sense of how we should be. And let's say, in terms of morality. And in different countries there's different standards as well, what is accepted and what is not. So I'm just trying to think, Gregory. Yes. So yeah, let's look at a situation, Gregory. If one individual, each individual has their own sense of shame or feeling of shame for whatever situation they happen to be in, and maybe they do not feel, while the public sees it differently, let's say, or some people, a group of people see it differently. So if I think of, I'm not thinking of anything specific right now, but just making an example now. So Gregory, if as an individual one does not feel shame about a particular activity that they are doing, yet the public or the group of people outside of that, they see it and they say, no, that is shameful, and they call it out. If that is the case, the person who is being called out by the, like that, should that person, change his behavior because of the people around him saying it's wrong, or should he say, no, I will carry on because for me, it's not shameful, it's right. So how should one act, Gregory? Because we are not an island, we live amongst a community. So if the people around us say we are doing is shameful, but we ourselves do not consider that, how should we respond?
In the first case, each individual personality that is striving for self-consciousness already has some sensing of what an appropriate behavior should be. For instance, no one within the community in a gathering may decide in full view of all to ease himself within the crowd, because that particular person will start wondering, at my standing, one is not talking about children. For children could do it because they haven't come of age. But the more mature the personality is, even with physical maturity, assuming there are no mental issues, the more conscious and the more restraint that person has. If, however, you have within a group of people, which one may say is cultural, they then decide that some things can be termed as shameful and others are not shameful, then those who made that decision have only made that decision depending on their collective maturity. But for a personality who is striving for self-consciousness, restraint is the first thing. Restraint not to expose yourself in order to attract attention over issues, over even certain natural functions like, using the toilet or whatever. No one will want to expose themselves. So this matter of shame is highly personal because it already exposes your maturity or immaturity. For someone who is unwell, like one may say that person is insane, such a personality can do whatever they wish to do and would not even reflect upon it because they are not within their senses. So you have different communities depending on their collective maturity. They will then judge whether some things are shameful or not shameful. But the more mature they become, then their activities are carefully scrutinized and they will improve on the laws which they had initially.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I just want to, we mentioned right at the beginning that we have the five senses, touch, hearing, and others. So what I want to ask is, shame. Does it work with those five senses, or is there some other way, how shame? You mentioned it is through spiritual laws, but I just wanted to understand, because the laws, you can't really touch the laws, or the senses, you feel it, literally, let's say, but with the shame, it is also a feeling. It's also a feeling, but I just want to connect that. Is that feeling of shame, Gregory, connected with the five senses? Let me ask like that.
Expressions or the five senses gather impressions, or they gather external impressions and assemble it at the brain level or the frontal brain. The frontal brain then passes it on to the back brain, and the back brain then passes it on to the human spirit or to the spirit. It is the spirit that senses shame. Shame due to the inadequacy which then comes forward. The more mature the human spirit is, the more the feeling of shame is pronounced, because it's able to differentiate very finely that which it should do and that which it should not do. The five senses you mentioned are only channels that pass information to the brain, and then finally it goes to the spirit. So that is the only connection. But the five senses are just channels for detecting things, like the eyes for seeing, the ears for hearing. So some things can be said. They are not seen, but once they have been heard, and one might, you shouldn't have said this. Doesn't mean that it was seen, but it was only heard. And when it then touches the human spirit, depending on its maturity, it's able to reject, no, it's able to decide. For the real decisions are done within the spirit, not outside of the spirit. The same thing with the sense of smell, the same thing with the sense of touch, the same thing with the sense of sight. So the five senses endowed through the physical body are only channels. The central point, or the personality, which is the human spirit, is the one that makes use of what has been sent to it to make a decision as to the adequacy or inadequacy.
Thank you for this explanation, Gregory. Certainly it makes us see things more clearly. So thanks for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushing. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. Shame, guilt, and humility. You are welcome to join us in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box. Bless Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. And 24 hours later, the next day, you can listen to the recording of the show. Again on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box. Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space, Grail message, space, and the topic of the show next, which is shame, guilt, and humility. Just to remind you, the topic tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. Gregory, we talked about shame and the 5 senses, and that they transmit to our front brain and then to the back brain and then into our spirit, Now, Gregory, we also have a conscience. If we do something wrong, this conscience also strikes us. So is the conscience a spiritual element in this activity of shame?
When that expression conscious is used, it has to do not with the physical body, but with the real essence of man. For in making a judgment, man must make a decision. And when one has made a decision, or before one makes a decision, there are all sorts of other impressions which may assail it. These impressions could be very careful, just like you have people advising you when you are reflecting. It is the impressions which assail the personality, which impressions come from those of goodwill. These are what forms one's conscience. For when a decision is to be made and one has to weigh here and there, of course, in the process of weighing, some other impressions touch you, which impressions must have come from those of goodwill, either supporting you, to strengthen you, such that you will make the right decision, even if that decision is very challenging for you. That is what forms the conscience. The support, the goodwill of others that tend to support you to ensure you do not make a wrong decision. At the same time, even if one has made a wrong decision, those impressions still are still around to support you, to ensure you can find a way of redoing or trying to jolt you to find ways to unburden yourself or to untie the knots which one has tied by making the wrong decision. It is this extra sensing, these other impressions, which are from those of goodwill that form one's conscience.
Thank you for that explanation, Gregory. That's really good to know that the conscience, even if you're going astray, despite its warning, it keeps reminding you to go back, to go, let's say, to be on the straight and narrow. So that's good to know that that support is there. The help is there, you can say. Now, obviously with shame, we're supposed to adjust or change our ways, when we're doing something wrong. Now, some people, Gregory, they find it difficult to, especially, let's say, those who have public roles, to accept in public that they have done any wrong. It looks like if they admit that, somehow they will lose their reputation or suffer some respect, which they have, So I'm wondering, Gregory, when something like that, some leader has made a decision which has gone wrong, turned out to be wrong, and then it's quite clear that it's turned out wrong, but when they're interviewed, they never can admit anything wrong. They probably will change course, but they wouldn't say, "Oh yes, I made a mistake here," and what exactly was the mistake. They will just change the course and not even make excuses, just move on to something else, just avoid the discussion about the mistake. So when that is the case, I sometimes even wonder whether the person actually that leader has actually recognized they've made any mistake, or they've just changed their mind because their public pressure or brought them round, but that is not what they want. So they're thinking, "Oh no, I better do something different," and they turn around. So it's very hard to know, Gregory. I'm sort of mixing everything up here. What I'm trying to say, let me see the question I would like to ask. So yes, when somebody is a leader in public and they do something wrong, and that they can't seem to admit it, that they have done wrong or have decided now to change the course, should they admit their mistake and say, look, I discovered now that's not the way forward, and now I need to do some different way? Or should they just mumble their way out of their, mumble may not be the right word, but so fumble their way out of that to something what they think is the next new way to the way to go forward?
It is not the task of discussions like this to tell leaders or non-leaders what they should do or should not do. For whatever one calls them, they are human personalities just like any others. And whatever decision a person makes either serves to unburden himself or to burden himself with more guilt. So, the free will is always there. How to use the free will is left to the individual alone, for it is he himself or herself who is either dragged down or floats upwards. But common sense should be that if you yourself do not know the way, then you should not trust yourself upon the people and ask them to vote for you with the sense that you know the paths to follow. Maybe it would be best to be honest with oneself. If one is not honest with oneself, how can he himself or herself be honest with others? So that's why one is stressing, it's not in forums like this, but many have to be told, be honest with yourself. If you know, say you know. If you don't know, say you don't know. That is left for the individual. How they then burden or unburden themselves is left to them. But the stress must be if you yourself do not know the challenges or cannot envision the challenges which the leader or which are incumbent on so-called leadership, which means taking the responsibilities about the will and the woe of the people, then don't go there. So with that, people should make up their mind rather than be told you must do this or you must. No, that has never worked. Every decision made is personal, as long as you yourself has taken that decision to take the responsibility. So the responsibility falls on the shoulders of the so-called leader.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Gregory. I now want to move on to the second part of the topic tonight. So the topic we're discussing tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. So we've talked a lot on shame. Now I would like to talk about guilt. So again, Gregory, I looked in the dictionary, the definition of guilt, and there I found it says the fact of having committed a specified or implied offense or crime. So I'll repeat that definition of guilt. The fact of having committed a specified or implied offense or crime. So again, Gregory, anything you'd like to say on that definition?
One may have guilt, which guilt has nothing to do with crime.
Right. So let's look at that.
For instance, there are certain things which you yourself thought you should be doing. And let's say you intend to wake up first thing in the morning. However, you did not prepare yourself to ensure you wake up at first thing in the morning. When you then woke up later, you felt guilty. It doesn't mean you have committed a crime. You sense that inadequacy. And that becomes a personal sensing of guilt. For you must have had plans put in place. All this has to do with the maturity of the human spirit. If there are tasks which the human personality is capable of fulfilling, but did not fulfill those tasks due to negligence or some other thing, then in looking back, the spirit has a sense of guilt. For had it fulfilled this task, then it would have brought benefit not only for himself, but also benefit for the others. And that is where the unfulfilled task, that is where the guilt comes in.
Thank you for that, Gregory. There's something in the news in UK politics in the last few weeks, which has been very controversial. This has caused a controversy, and they call it sleaze, political sleaze, you can say. Where I'll give the actual story. So basically, this is in UK, of course. This is the members of parliament having second jobs, earning large amounts in some cases, and and also so they're not spending their full time on being an MP. This is allowed by the rules of the parliament to do that. The only thing is, if you do have a second job, or doing, even if they call it consultancy, you're not allowed to lobby the government, meaning that you don't try to influence the government to a particular interest, which is like in favor of that organization or company that is paying you, that you're being employed by. So you're not allowed to do that, to influence the government. And there was a case just recently of this MP called Owen Paterson, who was, in quotes, I don't know if the convicted is the right word, but let's say found to have broken the, conditions of conduct in terms of doing lobbying, which is that's the word where you influence the government, and paid lobbying, let's call it, which is not allowed, and also using government facility that you have been given as an MP not to be used for non-government, parliamentary facilities, for using that for non-parliamentary work. So that's not allowed as well. So he was found guilty. That's what we're talking about, guilty. This is Owen Paterson, found guilty of that. And then somehow, when the time came to vote on this, sort of confirming the judgment, you could say, the government decided they wanted to support this MP, or at least find a different solution, let's call it that, which was basically to break that system that is being employed at the moment, that is there now, change it or remove it, and then have a review to make a new system, whilst before that decision has been finalized on which is by the Parliament on this MP. So that caused quite an uproar, even amongst the same side as the Conservative Party, basically, that was putting this forward. And even though I don't want to go too much into the story, but I just want to give that picture that this one Patterson lost his wife who committed suicide, so there was a sympathy for him. That caused also extra pain in his story. So, any case, the opposition, because this is meant to be done on a mutual basis with the government can't just decide what it wants to do. It has to be sort of mutual cooperation with the opposition as well. So everybody's saying this is the standard that we should all follow. They were very much opposing that, even though the government got its way because it has a majority. There was a big uproar, and in the end, the whole thing was overturned. And even though the government got its way, it was, let's say, within the next day, it was overturned, and government did a U-turn, you can say. So my question, Gregory, from this situation is, because sometimes the people in power think they can override, or they have the powers, and if they want to do something, and if there's a way they can do it, they will go forward and do it, no matter what the system is. And however the system can be abused or can be manipulated, let's say. So my question on that, Gregory, is should should one follow a system to do what one wants, or should the system be actually respected, even if there are some weaknesses in the system? Because that was I didn't mention that there were maybe potential weaknesses, but should one just say, okay, this is what I want, and I must get what I want? So even if the system may have some faults, I will do it what I want, or should one follow the system and to its conclusion, and then improve it with the cooperation of the whole Parliament, let's say. In this case, this is the example I'm looking at, Gregory. So how should one proceed in this situation when maybe one feels aggrieved with the existing system?
Again and again, one had stressed very carefully. Here are rules which have been devised by the human intellect. Politics, the rules of politics, as far as one knows, are not self-consistent. Neither are they consistent, so-called, with the laws of nature. However, what is clear is that the laws in politics are those of self-interest. The laws of self-interest are not consistent with the laws of nature. Which laws of nature ensures that everyone benefits? With that, there is no further comment. For those who put these rules in place have to bear the responsibilities. The only thing one knows is that the rules being used in politics are the rules of self-benefits, not for the benefits of the others. So it is they who have to refine to ensure, those in politics, to ensure that whatever activity they are engaged in, that activity is for the benefit of the nation whom they have sworn to serve. The rest belongs to them.
Thank you for your answer, Gregory, because it just shows that your self-interest, you just mentioned that might be what was driving, or what somebody's doing, and but then very quickly, especially in this case, the other interest, let's say, came forward as well, and that suddenly they thought, oh, hang on a second, we thought we could do what we wanted, but without the cooperation of the others, we actually cannot go very far. So thank you for showing that we don't exist in a vacuum. On our own, we exist with others, and you cannot ignore others. And as you said, pointed out, they're supposed to serve the public, not their own. So very quickly, the whole thing on, especially as the public showed their fury as well. So that very quickly turned around. So thank you for that. Yes, so we are talking on guilt, Gregory, and what happens, you could say there's some moral standards. Again, I know I'm talking about leaders or public roles that people do, and it appears that people are not willing to, let's say, resign or follow moral standards because I think that is not what is relevant when it requires to do the job. What the focus should be on the work due to the job they're doing, and if they're capable of doing that, not about the moral standards about which may not be directly related to the job. So Gregory, I want to ask, should one's activity, I'm going to include general public as well now, should the moral values be equally important as the capability of doing our work that we are involved in? Should they count equally, the moral values, or is it more important that we are competent and capable in doing our work and having the capability of that? Is that more important?
There is no basis for equating the capability of doing the work with the moral values. Moral values apply to the human personality, the human spirit. You do not apply moral values to animals. You only apply moral values to human beings. For it is the human spirit that makes the decision, that burdens or unburdens himself or herself. Therefore, those moral values hold first. Those moral values which are tied to the virtues, which virtues help to purify or to enhance the high standing of the human personality. It is not the capability, if one is considering physical capability, but it is the moral that comes first. And that is why you have beauty and the beast. The beast, in accordance with the laws of nature, is the executor that has the strength to push many things or to ensure some things are forcefully put in place. However, that must be under the guidance of beauty, which beauty springs from the human personality, the human spirit. And from the human spirit, that is where you have morality.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Continuing from what you've said, so we have guilt, we have morality, and we already talked earlier, Gregory, that people are can be of different level of maturity, and so their level of shame, recognition of shame or sensing of shame, depends on that maturity. So with regards to guilt and morality, you know, again, I don't give an example, but let's say somebody, you have your own personal feeling of guilt about something, and then others now, outside of that, make their view about, saying that, might not view it as guilt like you view it as, in whatever situation it happens to be. So my question there, Gregory, is it what should drive us forward in this matters? Should it be our own sensing of guilt, how we act, or is it what the others outside us or around us rather, how they perceive that guilt should drive us forward? How should we move forward when there's a perception of guilt, different perception of guilt, let's say, our one doubt and there are people around us?
Is it perception of guilt as applied to the people, or perception of guilt as applied to the individual?
To the individual. So let's say you as an individual, you perceive a guilt about what you have done, and then, but then this is something becomes aware to the knowledge of, it comes to the fore to the somewhere, let's say in your community, and then they make their own judgment about this activity that you have done, which they may not agree with your perception of it. So maybe you do, and I can't again think of anything specific right now, but so just where there's a difference, that's what I'm saying. If there's a difference of your perception of the guilt and there's something that you have done, and others who look on it and they have a different idea of it. So it could be, Gregory, the level of guilt. Maybe you feel the guilt very deeply, and the people around you do not think of it as so serious as you perceive it to be. So, because there's so many levels here. So let's think of it like that, rather than.
It will not be helpful to always generalize, because the human personality that has a sense of guilt, depending on its maturity, or that has a sense of shame, when guilt is mentioned, it's as if a knot has been tied. Which knot has been tied not only through physical deeds, it could even be in the way you care to think. All right, the way you care to put things, the way you care to arrange things. One could have a sense of guilt and decide now to improve on it, whereas others may dismiss it, it doesn't matter. Again, this shows one's level of inner maturity, or striving to be matured in such a way so as to ensure things are very well arranged, rather than things left in such a mess. So, first, it is the human personality that is maturing. And that is where the emphasis should be laid. Others only express their level of maturity or their collective levels of maturity. It is these collective levels of maturity that is put into a draft, and at that level becomes like a template. As they improve better than they were in the past, of course, that draft is improved. So these things are not rigid things. They are alive and they keep improving. It doesn't have to be what one may refer to the public. You yourself today might decide, this is how I was doing it in the past. There was no problem. And subsequently, along the line, you felt, no, it could be better than this. And then you decide to rearrange the way you do things. If, as at the time that occurred to you, you didn't do it, later, you may have a sense of guilt. So it's personal. It has nothing to do with the others. It is your life. You are the one who is maturing. The one you are mentioning is the collective on the outside. The collective one is there, but there's also the personal. No two people are at the same level of maturity. So, on the one hand, there is the collective where you yourself will sort of subscribe or to some extent also enhance what has been agreed upon, and yet you have your own personal level of standards. Which standard? Could be the standard of cleanliness on the outside, and also the standard of cleanliness in the inside. The standard of cleanliness in the inside could be the purity of your thoughts, which when now expressed, when you yourself are in discussions with others, you will very carefully choose the words for expressions and also arrange them in such a way as to convey precisely what you intend to convey. So the sense of guilt can come not because you have offended others. It could be, most of these things could come because in your growth, in your spiritual growth, you sense there are some things you yourself should have done which you did not do. And therefore, you missed out on opportunities which would have helped in the refinement of the human personality, in the purification of the human personality. Having sort of ignored that opportunity, you now sense it as a sense of loss. Therefore, you have guilt.
Thank you so much for your answer and picture, with your explanation, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of this show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And we are broadcasting on blessradio1.com. That's the number one. Blessradio1, the number one.com. We are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number one, space, live stream. Also, you can listen to the recording of the show. This is the live show, and you can listen to the recording the next day. Also on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number one, space, Grail message, and then space, the topic of the show, which tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. And of course, you can also listen to our other previous shows as well on YouTube too. So the topic tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, so we've talked about shame and guilt, and the third part of the title of the topic is humility. Now, again, there's something in the news right now, currently. It has been going for some weeks, and I would like to mention it right now, and then we will explore or discuss it further. So there's a big story in the UK news, which is about a cricketer, former cricketer called Azim Rafiq, who's of a Pakistani heritage, and he played for Yorkshire county team, and he suffered racial abuse for many years from youth. He was actually born in Pakistan, and I think came here at the age of 15, or at least from the age of 15 he was involved with cricket here, and he suffered, and then for quite some years, this racial abuse, which seemed to be, let's say, very common or accepted, it seems, although because it was considered to be banter rather than actual, serious racial abuse, and as I say, it was very common. Now, and at that time, it didn't seem let's say the effect on him maybe was not so severe, but later it was, and he even considered committing suicide. So this was very serious when he made that so public, and then there was an investigation by Yorkshire County into racial abuse, and when this report eventually came out, they said it was this abuse they considered to be banter, and they would not take any action against anyone. That was the final conclusion. But then the story broke to the public, to the government, and so on, and things went, let's say, became more serious. And the government committee got involved, and today I won't go too much into it. A lot of the information or let's say the actual experiences were shared today in public in this government committee, which are even worse than what let's say had been known up to this point. So the point is, Gregory, the way this was handled has been an issue. There are so many issues, Gregory, with regards to this story. you could say, first there was a denial in terms of accepting the seriousness of the abuse. As I said, they called it banter. And then people said, no, this is absolutely not banter. This is actually really serious abuse. Also, what became clear was there was a culture, long-held culture, with this sort of behavior was accepted. And then the board of Yorkshire also felt, well, we don't know that in public, but let's say it could be surmised, maybe that they didn't want to rock the boat, if I can say it that way, and not make things too public. Otherwise, let's say there were some financial implications, with sponsorship and whatever else that is involved. This is you could say, my view. But it became, as the story unfolded, those people who were financially involved definitely took their decisions to withdraw. So in a way, you could see there was some influence going on here. So my question, Gregory, from all of this episode, if I can call it that way, is when eventually somebody stands up for justice in the face of overwhelming, you could say, opposition, or maybe lack of support, we can say, for something that is, could say morally conduct, and if they don't get the support or anything, and that's, as I said, this abuse is not only to one person, and it's not to one county. I'm only, this is what a new story is breaking now. So what I want to say, Gregory, on that, when something so, when I say serious happens, like an abuse happens, and you want to do something about it, should one, and it's so overwhelming, you're one person and you have like a big organization, or even more than just one organization, let's say a lot of people not with you. Should one stand up and, and state what you feel within you, or because this person suffered a lot before he came out, it seems, and how should one approach it, Gregory? That's what I'm saying. When you have it's like a culture, Gregory. It's the whole culture is wrong, and you have let's say you now feel I have to do something at this point. So how can one go forward in this situation when you are facing a mass? It's not one person has wronged you. It is a wrong that is like even I can call it historic or massive. I can't think of the right words at the moment, Gregory, but just something very big obstacle to overcome. How can one stand up when you're standing by yourself?
Strictly speaking, I will present a very brief scenario. Moses was granted the 10 Commandments. The first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods but me. Did human spirits obey this? No. Second commandment. Did human spirits obey that? No. So, people may do as they wish, but the law stands. It doesn't really necessarily mean it has to do with culture. Culture does not exist in isolation. Human personalities contribute the collective impressions the collective practices of human personality and their level of maturity is what is denoted as culture. Under culture, people have been nailed to the cross. Was there any revolt about it? Under culture, people have been lynched for not doing anything wrong. Under culture, people have been set on fire, and at the same time, those who did it babbled, and they called those babbling prayers. Did you do anything about it? Under culture, there has been what many call religion, which religion suppress the upswinging of the human personality, the upswinging of the woman, the race of women. Has anything been done about it? Nothing. That is the world we live in, where injustice, where lack of consideration. That has always been the case. All because many can hide under the expression, it is our culture. Many have suffered. Many will continue to suffer. As is well known, you do not have to do anything wrong before you are found guilty with the laws of men. Whenever you have many more people who consider that they are the owners of a particular place on the earth because they were born there, they then take the responsibility of excluding others. It happens everywhere. They show no respect for the aspiration of the human personality, which human personality is of spirit, and they are proud of it. Whenever you have that, then one should be very clear that there is that retardation and gross immaturity. All because they themselves have never considered those laws through which they were granted the opportunity to incarnate and mature here on earth. It is everywhere. The question which you'll be referring to, what should we do? From time, there had always been teachings. It doesn't have to be religion. Explaining the role of man on earth. What man has come here to do. If only men would then realize that they have set out from the same realm, the same origin, as unconscious human spirits, our spirit gems, and their purpose in this journey is to become self-conscious. Then you will have that in order to achieve that, there is the need for support for one and support for all. That is, one for all and all for one. Through mutual striving, exchange, they will then mature to such an extent that before too long, they will be ripe enough to sever themselves from the earth and move higher, and in step by step, in little steps, that is in humility, they are able to reach back home as self-conscious human spirit. Basically, that is what is needed. If whatever laws they have put in place does not help the human personality to achieve that maturity which the human spirit needs in order to mature and move higher towards its goal as a self-conscious human spirit, then whatever laws has been adopted, be it culture, be it art, be it science, those are counterproductive and are useless. Whether these conflicts come up in sports, in religion, in the sciences, in the arts, whatever human endeavor is mentioned here, if those laws do not resonate, those laws or bylaws they have put in place do not resonate with the laws of creation, with the laws of nature, through which they themselves came into creation, through which they themselves have to mature, which laws have made it possible for the self-development of the human spirit. If whatever bylaws the human personalities have put in place do not resonate with these laws, then it is not progress as demanded by creation. Of course, many have suffered under this. Christ did. Many have suffered under injustice. There are so many. All because of the formulation of rules, which rules are only for their self-narrow interest. It is very common to consider that, oh, other people are practicing self-narrow interest because one has not examined one's deeds, one's thoughts, one's intuition. Should each personality examine their thoughts, examine their deeds, then if they then use that as a basis, having in mind the laws of nature, the laws of nature, or the laws of creation, then very quickly each one would then realize how they have violated, how they have made themselves guilty through the non-observance of these laws through which they came into existence. Then there will be no need to accuse the other, because each personality along the line has sinned. For those who have been impacted adversely, they themselves can also gain, in the sense, having realized that which is wrong, they should make a vow to themselves never, ever, in their activities, to oppress others, be they men, women, boys, or children. They should make that vow to ensure their activities do not impact on others as to suppress them, as to make them feel bad. In that way, threats which would have obstructed them are severed. Then they are free. And that is the basis of many things when those songs are heard, free at last, free at last. Then they can thank the Lord Almighty for having, through patience and perseverance, placed certain things before them so that they will recognize that which is not beneficial to the human spirit. With that, all the pettiness will drop. But no, many will still ignore that and want to justify that which is wrong. For those who have been impacted, of course, it is terribly wrong, no doubt about that. Let's all learn from this.
Thank you, Gregory, for your answer, and let's say giving the explanation again. For the, let's say, what is where our focus is meant to be, and rather than you could say getting diverted to side paths and so on. So thank you for that. While you've been talking, Gregory, I've got some text message from a listener with regard to this. You could say, well, it is more general, the text message, but it's related to this story of this Pakistani cricketer, who suffered the racist abuse in that county, Yorkshire County. So what I'll do before I go there, Gregory, I just want to tell the listeners, this is Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uptrushin. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to, as I say, Blessed Radio. You can listen to us on Blessed Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Blessed Radio 1, again the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of the show the next day. Again on YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is shame, guilt, and humility. And of course, you can listen to our other shows that in the past, also from YouTube. And you are welcome to send in any questions or comments and for the topic tonight, which is shame, guilt, and humility. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. So, Gregory, the text I've received is, I think there's a couple of points in it. This one I could say is a comment. It says, regarding to the Pakistani cricketer having racial abuse in Yorkshire County, it says, it goes to show that multiculturalism does not work. It creates divisions and clashes. That's why separatism is the only solution. It is also what is best for each culture, as was intended from the beginning. I'm going to stop there 1 second. Yeah, let me, Gregory, would like to respond to that? Gregory, you're on mute.
Hello.
Yes.
I have the question. You said multiculturalism. What does that really mean?
I think they mean different races living in the same place and mixing together and you know, doing basically that. I will say that way. That's what it means. So it's like everybody's equal. This is of course my understanding. Everybody's equal. They should just come together, you know, live together and do things together. And here the person saying that does not work, and it causes divisions and clashes. And he says the only solution is separatism, basically keeping the races or cultures separate, as according to his person, as it was intended from the beginning.
Strictly speaking, culture is personal. Even within a so-called race, it has always been personal, which is a measure of the refinement of the human personality. When you have a collection of people coming together because they view things the same way, or they have accepted to view things the same way, that does not mean that each one sees these things the same way. There are variations. So you will have that even when, following the suggestion he or she has just made, each personality on earth will need to have their own kingdom before things will work. Parents, children, when children grow up, they follow their own paths or what they sense to be their paths. Doesn't mean they must agree with what their parents have followed. For if their parent had been a farmer, they may not have that sense they want to become farmers. Or if their parent had been a cab driver, they themselves may want to become doctors. They support such. However, when they feel or when they sense their incapacity in making adjustments, then there is this cry out. This so-called multiculturalism exists everywhere, even in their village. For all human personalities are not equal. They're not equal in height, in the way they express themselves, in their spiritual maturity. There are differences. So it would be wrong to say because people are at different stages of maturity, they should separate. It doesn't mean that to play a beautiful tune, because you have different notes, these notes should not harmonize. In fact, beauty itself is only an expression of that spiritual maturity, which is helpful to all. It is the human personality that must make adjustments to itself, that must continue to improve. The example which one gives most of the time is that certain parts of Africa in the past, if one had twins or children, in accordance with the culture, they were put to death. Not too far away, about maybe 500-600 miles away or less than that, another culture was there that, of course, you can have twins, you can have more than that. Now, ask yourself, separate those two people. What then happens? Those people who wish to slaughter their twins, would that be right? Because they have a different upbringing, or different culture? The human spirit needs to select that which is of benefit to it, not move with the masses and say, oh, it was good enough for my parents. Another very simple example. Long ago in India, whenever a ruler or the Maharaja, whatever they care to call him, died, the wife was roasted alive. It was their culture. Would that be right? Should they be granted the opportunity to continue like that? The human spirit should wake up. The human spirit should wake up to know what the truth is. Hence discussions like this. And stop cherry picking that which tends to satisfy its vanity. Where they are in the majority, they are free to oppress others. To them, that challenge of multiculturalism is not an issue. If, however, they go somewhere else and a semblance of what they had exhibited from where they had arisen, then there will be complaints. Let each challenge, pleasant or unpleasant, let that challenge help to polish the human spirit, to know that their origin is not of this earth, that they had set out from the realm of beauty. They set off from that realm as unconscious human spirit. It is their task. It is their duty, having been granted the opportunity to mature, to visit here the world of matter, and particularly here on earth, to mature through one another, sometimes through squabbles, sometimes through that which is very pleasant, and sometimes that which is not so pleasant. Let each human spirit take note of that. And in doing the best they can, show kindness to others. For that which you wish to reap, if it is kindness, you yourself must put that forth. That is the way it is. But no, they who do not show kindness to others at all will demand kindness from others. That is the cause of war. So, one, we hear of discrimination. Of course there is discrimination. But ensure that you do not give rise to discrimination through any of your activities. Then those threats which would have held you down such that you are able to make progress, those threats will either not arise, or if the threats are already there, they will be severed through your activities of kindness and understanding for others. That is the purpose why one is here.
Thank you, Gregory, for this clear answer. You covered quite a few points, and you pointed to the real big picture, which everybody should focus on, and not focus on the earthly, superficial, or this, so on what we see on the surface. What is really deep is what counts, not what is within. Let's say counts, not what is on the surface. So, thank you for bringing that out. We're meant to now focus on the word humility in our topic, which is shame, guilt, and humility. And I will just quickly mention what I found in the dictionary about the word humility, Gregory, which is the quality of having a modest or low view of one's importance. That's humility, the meaning of humility, the quality of having a modest or low view of one's importance. Is there anything you'd like to say to that word, definition?
That is quite helpful and could be used. But at the same time, humility, the key word there is modesty, not overestimation of one's importance, or even underestimation. But just what is modesty, no exaggeration in either side.
Thank you for that, Gregory, because I did perceive that definition about saying you can be thinking of yourself very, very lowly, and that would not really be right either, that you are so lowly that it's like you're not worthy at all, which is meaningless. It can't be that we have some purpose, so it cannot be that we are worth nothing. So thank you for bringing the balance, the right balance. Now this word, actually we're talking about humility, and I have a question which is about guilt, so maybe I should not use that one. Okay, let me look at this, Gregory. So let's say there's a crime or some bad situation that is exposed or reported, and then people quickly jump to point the finger of blame on the others, whoever they happen to be, and not look at themselves. How should one look at the situation? So let's say somebody, I won't think of a severe crime, but let's say somebody stole, somebody in front of us, stole something from us. And then, of course, we point the finger on the thief, or he stole from me. But maybe there's something we need to learn, or something we need to think about. for that, why it happened to us. So how can we look at these situations when bad things happen? Who do you blame? You say yourself, the person who did the, in quotes, the crime, or one look at yourself that, oh, you didn't protect yourself?
Both.
Both.
The lack of vigilance. It is the task of the human personality to be vigilant in thoughts, vigilant in deeds, to be in a perpetual state of alertness, such that many a bad deed can be prevented even before it precipitates here on earth. What one has seen in that deed, physical deed of stealing, such will have been in the world of ethereal matter and was searching for an opportunity to become deed physically. For one who is always on the alert, the efforts being made by that personality will be such that such which is floating around does not take root on his or her person or on the neighborhood. Of course, it is possible. But the first step is to purify oneself, to be able to ensure that that which emanates from you, which is not in harmony with the laws of creation, which is heavy, which causes suffering, which causes all the distortions, one should ensure that those terrible things do not emanate from you as the first step. And as a second step, to protect yourself against all these terrible impressions floating around, find or searching for an opportunity to become deed through someone who is not as alert. Therefore, in this case, vigilance. Vigilance of the intellect, of the physical body, and above all, vigilance in spirit. When that is combined, then one will protect oneself. But there's another aspect. Someone may steal from you, a sin from you, but you yourself, you have been so very vigilant to ensure you do not lose anything. But at the same time, that person, in quotes, who stole from you might have needed some form of support or help. And you, on the other hand, were not in a position or could not have granted that help. So, in all these things, there is the physical activity, but the key is the motive. What was the motive? If a mother, in quotes, has stolen from you a piece of bread, all because she needed to feed her child? How would you then respond to that? So man should become more intuitive. That through your activity, you not only protect yourself, but are able to be of benefit to others, even if it hurts you. After all, there are some nowadays who either give up voluntarily their blood to help others on the short term. There are others who give up material things. There are others who, on the spiritual level or on their thought level, show respect to others, such that given the buffer, others are able to mature. These are all things we should be taking into the equation. To help in this, works like we have been discussing, works like in the light of truth, the Grail message had been written such that in examining the scenarios, debating the scenarios, going through it very rigorously, the human personality will mature by following the paths which had been hewn out for the human spirits to follow, so as to get back home to paradise as a self-conscious human spirit. That is the purpose for all this discussion.
Thank you so much for this answer, Gregory. As we have come towards the end of the show now, I would like to read the foreword of the Grail message in the light of truth. It is titled, For Your Guidance. The bandage falls and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks this path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call, to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Abrushim. And if just to remind you listeners, if you are interested in looking at the Grail message or get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, just want to ask if you would like to say anything to the listeners to say goodbye.
Wishing them a beautiful and fruitful week.
Thank you. And dear listeners, thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show and found it enlightening. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. I wish you all a great week. God bless. Take care. All the best.